Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Femme Force podcast. My name is Rachael Paskvan, and I'm your host. And today I'm joined by a really special guest, my new friend, Amanda. Amanda is a breast cancer survivor, podcast host, and we're going to be talking a lot about survivorship, the identity shift, and navigating life after cancer. So, Amanda, thank you so much for coming on and being vulnerable and telling your story to everyone.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm honored to be a guest. Thank you.
And so you got diagnosed very early in life at the age of 34, which is just mind blowing to me that so many women are now getting diagnosed at a younger and younger age. What was going through your mind at the time of the diagnosis?
Yeah, so 34 and now I just turned 40. And looking
Right.
Thank you. And looking back, I was working full time. I am married, and at the time we had 3 young kids who were 6, 4, and 1, and it also happened to be COVID. So it was 2020. And so we were navigating homeschooling, isolation. Um, I was in grad school, working full time, and so it was an absolute shock. And to be fair, we have on my mom's side, there's a pretty significant history of cancer. So I had a plan. I I was going to have a hysterectomy at 35. I'd have a mastectomy at 40, just to hedge
Sure.
lessen the chances.
Yeah.
Um, and then here it was at 34, and I was diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer. So it was really unsettling just having to live in this new reality of not only in a pandemic, but also being so young and navigating this diagnosis. It completely pulled the rug right out from underneath
Oh,
me.
I can literally only imagine. And when you're going through this and you're thinking about this at 34, most people and insurances and doctors don't even test you until 40. Like I'm 39 and a half, more than a half, and I haven't gotten to do a mammogram yet, an official mammogram yet, because I'm not 40 yet. So were you testing yourself at home? How did you come about this because of the history and things like that?
Yeah, so I was tested for the BRCA gene, which is the gene that uh, puts you at a higher risk of breast and ovarian cancer, just based on my mom's side of the family.
Yeah.
And so that's where I had come up with this plan. I was like, all right, that's great. It kind of forced us to have our family a bit quicker. So I was tested at 28. And I had, I had 3 little kids at home, and my health was kind of put on the back burner. I was like, "Oh, I'm still young, like, I'm
Yeah.
relatively healthy, I exercise," like.
Yeah. You're like, I checking all the boxes here.
Yeah, and so I was occasionally doing self-exams. It's, the 1st of the month is a way to remember to do a self-breast exam, but I didn't always do that because I'm,
You got three
full
kids. You're busy.
full in mom mode. And so thankfully, I found a lump in my breast, and I had an appointment with my gynecologist for my annual exam. And so I went, and they're like, okay, well, why don't you go schedule a mammogram? And again, I was 34, so it's something that they had to put in orders for. And I was like, yeah, that's great. Like, sure. This was in May. And I walk out and promptly forgot about it. Because I was like, yeah, I'll get to it. And then about a month later, I just happened to be doing a self breast exam, and the little pea-sized lump had grown to about the size of a walnut. I was like, huh, I don't, that doesn't seem right. And so I
Yeah.
had gone back, and thankfully they had, my midwife who I saw at the time was like, listen, you need to go get this checked out. And so thankfully she's like, you have to do it. Just go see. And
Yeah.
so I had my first ever mammogram at 34, and it just kind of went from there.
I mean, and being diagnosed so young, not just young in our lifestyle, but young as in the retrospect of what we think of what women with breast cancer are, just the picture that you have in your head and the picture of, what cancer patients, especially for breast cancer, look like. Like there has to be this huge gap that you and I talked about the resources for women because we're not being, doing mammograms until we're 40 and because so many are pictured as older people. So, where is the gap that you see in the support for women in their 30s and 40s, even 20s now, which is so scary to say?
Absolutely. No, it is absolutely the resources. And I think just the understanding that these um, self exams are so important and being able to advocate for yourself. And, every time I would go in to get chemo, I got all these like strange looks because
You're
everyone
so
else was
young.
yeah, everyone else was, a grandma. And to your point, what we would imagine someone who's been dealt with, illness as we get older.
Yeah.
But it's just the understanding from physicians as well that you know, younger and younger women need more information. We need the accessibility to get a mammogram or an ultrasound or whatever that is. We need the resources and the education to help empower us to make those decisions and be aware that unfortunately women are getting diagnosed younger and younger. Um, and just the ability to get tested. And not only to get tested for BRCA or whatever it might be, but then to be able to do something about it and not have to wait until we have these, government issued guidelines because not everyone fits nicely, unfortunately, into that time frame and that period.
I feel like a lot of people don't know about their family health either. And that is from like people who have been adopted or, if your parents unfortunately passed away at an early age, but like my parents are still alive, they're just of the generation where they don't talk about it.
Yeah.
Like if I would have to dig to ask about health. I have a thyroid, I have Hashimoto's. And so I was navigating all this weight gain and it's Hashimoto's stuff, which is nothing obviously compared to breast cancer. And like dealing with this, and about a year and a half in, my mom's like, "Well, I have a thyroid issue, Joanne.
Wow.
Um, I've been going through this. Like, what? Like, these are things that like I need to be telling my doctors about because your pediatric record, your parents' records aren't linked to yours. Your
Yep.
pediatric records, from at least for my generation, were all paper documents. So even though I would go to the Cleveland Clinic, for my entire life, they don't have that paper document. They don't have anything until the digital stuff starts.
Yep.
So it's just this different experience when you don't have that kind of background, I would assume also.
Oh, 100%. And to be fair, fellow millennial, and really it was we just didn't talk about it. And that's something that
Yeah.
I'm really passionate about now. And just to go back to what you said is breast cancer or thyroid, they're both significant health issues. And so they're both things that, we're navigating through. And that's why I'm so passionate now about advocacy because we need to have those conversations and they're uncomfortable and, the
Yeah.
generations, we just didn't talk about it. But now I think and especially in this digital age, information is so much more accessible, but we just need to be sure that we have people who are able and willing to get the information out there.
No, 1,000%. I mean, and right now, like you're doing a ton of advocacy work. Like, how do you describe your journey today, 5 years after remission?
It's a constant rebuilding. When I think back to where I was August uh 2020, which is when I had started um chemo and everything, I couldn't imagine being here now.
Yeah.
I just couldn't imagine what life was like. And so January of this year, 2026, I hit officially 5 years in remission. Um, thank you. And so it's a rebuilding and it's still a journey. And initially everything that felt off was very acute. Like, oh gosh,
Yeah.
if I tweaked my back or something. I was like, "Oh my gosh, is it back?" So I've gotten past that stage now of this acute hyper focus, but it's still a journey. It's still learning to trust myself, um, and trust my body
Yeah.
and, um, you know, being that voice of support for others. Because I was so fortunate to have people that helped me along, and I'm very grateful, as unfortunate as is that I've been connected with other women going through this, that I'm able to help them or at least share my experience and resources that I've been exposed to or been made aware of.
Well, you're talking a little bit about like the anxiety and like this pressure to move on. And I'm sure there has to be so many different identity shifts because you have to be different in your marriage. I'm assuming like how you look at motherhood, your career, let alone what normal looks like. So, what surprised you the most about life, after treatment and being in remission?
There's a big focus on the patient. I had a team of doctors, everyone, I had such a great community. My husband, our families, our friends really showed up. And then I reached the end of chemo, I reached the after surgery, and it's like, not that the support dropped off, but it was different.
Yeah,
I read a phrase somewhere, it's called the casserole cliff. You bring casseroles to people while they're going through something, but then as soon as they're better, that stops. And I'm like, "But wait a second, like, I'm not who I was before.
before.
I can't go back to who I was a bit naive a little bit without having previously faced my own mortality." And so what this journey has taught me is to be more intentional. I'm more intentional with my relationship with my husband, with my children, how I spend my time. Um, and from a career perspective, I was mid build. I was my mid 30s. I was experienced. And then I had to take a step back to think, okay, I'm working all these long hours. I'm doing all of this. Is this really what I want? Is this,
Yeah.
with the time that I have? So I think intentionality is something that I've taken away from this experience. And as incredibly hard and challenging as it was, I'm forever grateful for that because it has made me more intentional with how I spend my time and who I spend my time with.
I mean, and it has to be, especially for women, such a difficulty focusing on your career after that. Like, those emails are not a life or death thing. That
Right.
PowerPoint deck is not going to make or break anybody's life or anything like that. Do you feel like you came in with like a new viewpoint for your career and, work in general?
Oh, 100%. 100% yes, because I was so career focused that, I had to answer those emails. I had to get those PowerPoints. And now I'm like, I have literally faced death.
Death, yeah.
Um, I'm not going to work myself. I mean, and obviously, and I say that, there's projects, there's time constraints, that things that I'm passionate about that I will get done. Um, but now when I hear complaints, it's like, okay, yeah, it's okay. I understand
Yeah.
this is important to you right now, but in the grand scheme of things, it's definitely
This
going to
isn't,
take a
yeah.
different perspective.
I mean, it has to though. Like your life, it has to shift. Things have to shift. And I mean, because you survived, there has to be this survivor guilt because I mean, stage 3 is extremely aggressive. Any form of cancer is obviously so scary and debilitating. But as they name those stages, it's scarier and scarier, and the percentage is less and less.
Yep.
So, how do you get through the survivorship, that people, when people didn't expect you to survive, or, others because you joined this community of women that you didn't ask to be a part of, and you end up surviving through?
Absolutely. No, and that's such a great question. And I think it's something that's not discussed often enough because we're supposed to be grateful to be here. And I am. But I'm also grieving the life that I had before. And so I had a conversation with someone recently who expressed, we had talked a little bit about this survivorship guilt. And what they had shared really resonated with me is that they're here and they made it when others haven't, and so their purpose now is to help others who are coming behind them. And that's really where I see my purpose as well. Is I've been through something really hard and I'm not the only one, but I have the ability to help others navigate through whether it's cancer or something life-changing and help bring space and words to something that hasn't been named before and how they're feeling. And so the survivorship guilt is absolutely there, but instead of thinking about how hard life was, I had this renewed appreciation for how beautiful it is and what can I do with the time that I have to help others who are still navigating or will be navigating something really hard.
I love that though. I mean, like I said, it's a community you didn't ask to be a part of. It's something that no one asks that I want to join and get this kind of support system. And I can't imagine coming out on the other side and people being so excited, but then still being going through it yourself or knowing that others haven't survived. And how do you deal with the guilt from that? Is there a way to ever get through that?
I think just acknowledgement, and therapy. I'm a I am a big supporter of therapy because going through cancer is trauma. And
It it's the only way to describe it.
yeah, it is something, especially when you're thrust into this community. And I'm so grateful for the women that I have met, but we're all part of this club, this group, like you said, that nobody wanted to join. Um, but it's about reframing, yes, I can live in that sorrow. I can live in that dark space and think about like, what was me? Or I can honor the memories and the legacies of those who, are no longer with us, and I can pour into others. I can help others and, hopefully make their journeys not easier, but
Yeah.
make them feel less alone.
No, and I mean, I wanna dive into that. So you are doing a ton of advocacy. I feel like, unfortunately, when you have cancer, you already become awareness because then all of a sudden people are like, "Oh my gosh, should I be checking myself? Like, should I tell my mother? Should I tell my sister?" All of these different feelings, like, come about when you're doing that. So, we talked about the importance of, like, early detection and self-exams, and I think the first of the month is so smart. Everybody needs to take a pause right now and put it in their calendar. Put it in a Google Task as a monthly reminder, first of the month, self-breast exam. Check.
Yes.
That's what I do. So, it's on a task list, so that way I'm like, "Oh, I gotta do that today," because we're so busy, and especially as women, and we have so many roles that we're playing. You're on to the next thing. You're doing all these things and let alone triple checking your tatas that month.
Right.
Like, so it is not an easy thing. But now you're trying to break that stigma around talking about health and, use your voice and your platform to create awareness. And what do you think that women need to be more aware of? Do you think it's just the self-exams? Do you think that this is getting younger and younger? What are your top 3 things that you're like, this is what I want my message to deliver?
Everyone has voice. And women, I think oftentimes, that would be my number one is use your voice if something feels off. Oftentimes women can be dismissed where we are told, and again, this is a generalization. Oh, it's
Yeah.
anxiety, or you need to lose weight, or sleep more, eat better, whatever it is.
We totally have time to sleep more.
So my number one recommendation would be you have a voice and you need to use it. You need to advocate for yourself. If you don't find that you're getting the support from your doctor or your physician, go find someone else, get a second opinion. It's so important that you feel heard and validated because you know your body best. And if something feels off, go find someone that will listen to you.
Yeah.
The second would be the self exams, and so do not put yourself on a back burner. It is so easy to put off your monthly self breast exam or put off your physical or whatever it is. And believe me, I get it. Like
Yeah.
I totally understand that there is nothing more important in this life than your health. And once
1,000%.
once you let that go, then, everything else kind of falls to the wayside. And I would say if you are navigating your own journey, or if you're supporting someone, especially from a caregiver perspective, navigating their own, make sure you're taking care of yourself as well. I think that is a message that, again, isn't often said enough, and something that's come up through my conversations is the role of the caregiver. And I think back to my husband,
Yeah.
our parents, our community, everyone who stepped in, and they're just as much a part of this journey as I was. And, they don't often get the accolades or the awareness or the support.
Yeah.
And not that they're looking for that, but they're also going through something.
It's a
So
completely different emotional roller coaster
absolutely.
to go through, and
And
it's emotionally draining when, you're not going through it, but you have to watch and there's nothing you can do, but yet you're doing everything, in the behind the scenes.
exactly. And so what if you get burned out, you're not going to be, you need to put on your oxygen mask first so that way you can support others around you. So I would say that advocate for yourself. If something feels off, prioritize your health, and help others do that too. And then as a caregiver, or even someone going through something, make sure you pour into yourself and take that time, so that way you can show up for those around you.
When it comes to advocating yourself for yourself medically and with doctors, is there a certain way that you go about doing that? Because I feel like if you want a second opinion or you don't like how something's being done, I feel like as women, we're so polite. We're like trained to be so polite. It's like when your manicure screws up your nails or you don't like the color, you're still like, oh, screw it. Like I'm keeping it for 2 weeks and we'll change it too. Or like they look great. I love them, but you hate them. How your health is obviously so much more important than a manicure. So how do you go about advocating for yourself, like with doctors or medical teams? Because there's so many people that are around you during this entire endeavor.
Absolutely. I Something that really helped me was taking notes, and going in with a because once you're in there and they're talking in medical jargon, it's very overwhelming. And so I would sit down with my husband, and we would write out questions beforehand. So that way I was prepared going in. I wasn't caught off guard. I wasn't trying to, at the last minute, come up with questions to ask. And then, so be prepared going into the conversation. Never be afraid to question why. And of course, not in an aggressive way, but if they're not giving you a test or whatever. Well, can you walk me through this? Like, tell me why. And then also have a support person. So whether that's a spouse, a partner, a friend, having someone there to help advocate on your behalf as well. Because oftentimes when you are the patient, you don't feel well and you're not performing at your best because you're tired or you're ill. Having that other person there to help advocate for you, is so critical. And so whether it's a partner, a spouse, a friend, just having that other party that can help be your voice is so vital, and so important.
I mean, I love that. And I mean, it's such a good lesson though, because I feel like we go into these things and into these meetings in general, and you're just like, oh, okay. And then you walk out and you're like, wait, what? I don't even know. Do you remember what they said? Do you know? And the jargon has
Yeah.
to be so overwhelming because I'm a doctor of Grey's Anatomy, but that's about the end of my medical expertise there. Like I can do a burr hole on a ferry boat, but that's all you get from me. So I would definitely feel like I would be overwhelmed
Yeah.
trying to keep up with the doctor, pretend to keep up with the doctor even.
Oh, absolutely. And again, when you are fighting for your life and you're just, you know, I will say, and I had a fabulous team. I'm so grateful. But still, like, I didn't know any better. Like, I didn't know what I was supposed to ask or what I was supposed to do. So, again, writing it down for me and keeping a list to go back to reference, was so helpful. Yeah, and I'm not a doctor. I will say Dr. Google can take you down some pretty
I'm sure,
rough
yeah.
rough rabbit holes, and so I think there's a fine line between being informed and going down a rabbit hole, because that, you know, Dr. Google and the internet will
Yeah.
tell you the worst case scenario. And so I would caution anyone, you know, be informed,
Don't
but
self-diagnose, yeah.
exactly.
I totally get that. Don't go off Grey's Anatomy, everybody. Like Have an actual doctor. Listen to the medical team. Those things are important. So you launched a podcast that I was so grateful to be a guest on, and it's to support other survivors. You're creating space for these really honest conversations. So what does that platform mean to you now?
I'm so honored, and just so excited to have created who would become Life Beyond Change. And it started off, season 1 was focused on life after cancer,
Yeah.
because that is something that I'm intimately familiar with. But in those conversations, I realized that we all go through something. We all have these identity shifts, and that's really the crux of what this podcast is about. And I'm so grateful that you were a guest and have shared your journey as well, because we all go through something, right? Whether
Yeah.
we lose job or we change jobs, whether it's intentional, we change careers, or we go through some type of medical trauma or experience, we come out significantly changed on the other side. And so I'm I'm honored for those who have trusted me with their stories and want to bring awareness to what this identity shift means. How do we navigate through these changes, whether planned or unplanned? But it means to me that there's a community that are looking for this type of conversation, that we haven't explored yet. So I'm just so grateful and honored that people are trusting me and this space, with their stories and their journeys.
I love that though. I mean, and you're working towards making that impact, and that impact has to just feel so rejuvenating after everything you've been through to be able to not just give back, but to be able to contribute and also bring awareness to those, because no matter what, your breast cancer journey is a part of you. So each episode is going to have a little bit of you in it, even if you're talking to other people.
Absolutely. And to go back to what we said earlier around that survivor guilt, and this is my way to give back. I'm still
Yeah.
here. I don't know what my purpose is exactly, but this is something that I feel so passionate about. And I bring, to your point, I bring my experience in navigating through whatever journey someone else has been on, but just that understanding that we've all been through something hard. Um, but we what can we learn from it, and what can we take forward to help the next person?
I love that though. And so, I mean, you're doing all of these things. You're navigating your diagnosis, you're navigating your recovery, you're a mom, you're a wife, you're doing the podcast. You've got so many things going on. It was one thing every woman should know about her health and her voice?
You have one. There is nothing more important than you. And you have a voice, use it. You are your own best advocate. Um, I cannot stress enough that it is up to you to be intentional. And so, please, anyone listening, if you've been putting off that doctor's appointment, I completely understand that timing and scheduling is hard, but navigating through a cancer diagnosis or some type of diagnosis is going to be even harder. So get ahead of it and use your voice to advocate for yourself.
I love that. As we wrap up, I like to ask all of my guests one final question. If you could give one piece of advice to your 16-year-old self, what would that be?
Oh, I love that. If I'm reflecting back on who I
She's a
was.
different girl.
Absolutely, I would say take the risk. Go and explore. Don't be so concerned with what people think about you, because there's so much world to see and so much to do. Um, and so go do it. Don't be hindered by what you think people may think about you or what they want. Because there's so much to do, and there's a great life to live ahead of you.
I love that. I mean, it is something we should take as advice as adults now also.
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing. A lot of times when I ask these questions, I look back and I'm like, But this is you're saying it for your 16-year-old self, and I'm like, "Wait, but I needed to hear that also, and I'm 39." So, I feel like the advice just keeps on coming. So, I want everybody to take a pause, even if you're driving, make a mental note, put it in your calendar. Check yourself at least once a month. Make sure you're up to date on your girl doctor appointments. They are important. It's once a year, go in, get checked, do the self exam, and advocate for yourself. Okay. Amanda has taught us we need to have a voice and you need to make sure that you're taking care of yourself first. And that starts with your doctor's appointments, your own health by checking yourself. So if you get anything out of this episode, please just do that. Okay. Early detection is a way for early prevention. So thank you, Amanda, for coming on. I'm going to be linking all of her podcast notes in the notes below, but tell the listeners where they can find you on social.
Absolutely. No, Rachel, thank you so much for holding the space and for what you do. So I have a website. It's amandalentz.com. Or you can find me on Instagram at Life Beyond Change, which is also the name of the podcast. And you can find this podcast anywhere you with all major platforms.
Love that. Everybody go take a listen, take a moment out, save your tatas, self check. I cannot say it enough, and I will keep saying it. Amanda, thank you again for coming on, being so vulnerable with me and sharing your story. I really hope it helps at least one listener out there and that someone hears this.
Absolutely. No, Rachel, thank you so much.
Bye, everyone. We'll talk next week.